Hey guys, Ev Mack, Mango Shaman here, with a very special guest, Don Bennett. Don, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been on the health-seeking path for about almost a half a century. uh, and I started to think about my health when I saw people in my family, on one side of my family living to over 100, just dying in their sleep of natural causes, and other people in my family dying at 65 of something horrible. So I'm like, So as a teenager, I'm like, I want to go like them, not like them. So I said, there's got to be a reason, because these are all people in my family. So what's the difference? What are they doing that they're not doing, or what are they doing that they're not doing? So I started to look into it, and I realized that diet played a big part. The diets were very different. Their lifestyle practices were very different. So that put me on the path, so to speak. So I started researching it, and again, initially it was just for selfish reasons. I realized at a young age that I had a health potential. I thought of that phrase, health potential. I didn't know what it was. I figured out you can't even quantify it. But everyone has one, but there's no way to know what it is, but everyone has one. So I said, all right, whatever it is for me, how do I live to it? How do I get to have my health potential? So that's when I started with diet first, because that's the biggest subject. And then after I researched diet for a number of years, I said, well, diet can't be the only thing. Well, yeah, there's exercise and sleep and sunshine and hydration. So I just kind of discovered these basics of health for myself. And then I realized that this was all encompassed within a philosophy called natural hygiene. Because someone said to me, oh, you're one of those natural hygienists. I didn't really know what that was, but then I looked into it and I go, yeah, I rediscovered natural hygiene for myself. Met other natural hygienists, and like, this is cool. So natural hygiene people, they just eat as close to what we're biologically adapted to eat as possible. They use logic and common sense and rational thinking for the most part. There's some natural hygiene purists that base their behaviors on the way things should be, but aren't anymore. So that's where they and I kind of diverge. I believe in dealing with reality in our modern world. So when someone says, well, you shouldn't have to do any blood testing or take supplements because we couldn't have done that 100,000 years ago. Well, sure, of course we couldn't have. A good thing too, because it wasn't available.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to, because back then we were living in our biological eco niche where you couldn't go wrong unless you did something like, hey, I wonder what's in that cave. Oh, then that could go very wrong for you. But as long as you got enough to eat and you didn't get eaten, you were golden. But today is a different story. Today there's a lot more things that can degrade our health and burden our bodies, and that's on one side of it. So it makes our body demand more of certain nutrients, let's say. So there's the demand side. But on the supply side, our food isn't as nutritious as it was 100,000 years ago. So you got a 1-2 punch there, like a perfect storm for not having the best health your genetics will allow you to have. So that's when I looked into it and tried to figure out, well, how can we compensate for all that? You know, for the pollutants in the air and the food that's not as nutritious as it really could be or should be. And I've discovered ways to compensate and to try and get us as close as we can to our health potential.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about how important it is to be your own advocate when you're seeking for health, because there's so much, there are people out there that aren't in your best interest, and it takes a little, outside the box thinking to get where you want to be.
Oh, absolutely. I recommend to everybody, because, like, take a medical doctor. Medical doctors aren't born with the information they have. They had to be taught it. Well, it's the same for us. Any information that we have, we're not born with it, we have to learn it. So I recommend learning not as a student, but as a researcher. The reason why is students don't tend to question what their teachers teach them. Well, they may ask questions of clarification, but they don't tend to question the basic premises of the teachers that are teaching them. And that's fine if everything the teacher is teaching them is 100% accurate. But maybe in a history class or a geometry class, it'll all be accurate. But if you're trying to learn about health, there's a lot of inaccurate information out there. So instead of learning as a student, I recommend to learn as a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
Because researchers, well, they just question everything. It's nothing personal. They question everything. They vet all the information coming into into their sphere, so they can separate the correct information from the incorrect information. So I actually recommend people to look for and try and find the conflicting information. And that seems counterintuitive because they're like, well, no, I don't want conflicting information. I want everything that I find out to square with everything else that I find out. But that's not going to work in the real world. So you want to find the conflicting information so that you can figure out, okay, well, these things are diametrically opposed to each other. So one is correct and one is incorrect. Now, I've been following A. So I want to know if A is the correct one or the incorrect one.
Yeah.
And if it's the correct one, great. At least I can then know about B because my other friends are following B, so I can let them know, if you want to then go on to teach other people, or at least just share what you've discovered with other people, like I've been doing for a long time. So it's unfortunate there's incorrect information out there. In fact, the third book that I wrote is nothing but the incorrect information that exists in the raw vegan community. Fortunately, it's a very thin book.
Yeah.
It's a lot thinner than my other books. And maybe one day I can get it a lot thinner, maybe one day we won't even need it. Well, that's wishful thinking. We'll probably always need
Hopeful.
it. But so you got to know what the incorrect information is so you don't end up following somebody who may have your best interest at heart, maybe a very sincere person, a very caring person. They just learned a little bit of incorrect information that they thought was correct. So if they're teaching everything that they teach as correct, which why wouldn't they be? They're sincere, they care, but some of it is incorrect, and you follow that and you think, hey, this person is a sincere, caring person, I like this person, I believe this person's information, but what if 5% of it is incorrect? And what if that 5% is dealing with nutrients? The biggest one, I'll just share it right now, is when I hear people say, oh, if you just transition to a raw vegan fruit-based diet, fruits and greens and a little bit of nuts and seeds and stuff, you'll be great. You'll have the best health you can possibly have, as long as you, of course, pay attention to the other equally important aspects of robust health, getting enough sleep and sunshine and blah, blah, blah. But that's a wonderful notion. Just eat fruits and greens and you'll be great as far as nutrition is concerned. In fact, a very prominent raw food educator says just that. When you start eating a fruit and greens diet, when you start eating enough of fruits and greens and get all the other stuff out of your diet, the stuff we're not designed to eat, you don't have to be concerned about nutrition. And again, a lovely notion, and I'd love to believe it, but I can't because it turns out to be not true. Mm-hmm. We still have to be concerned about getting enough nutrition, especially when you consider that some nutrients, a few of them, don't even come from food. They're designed to come from sunshine. What's the one that comes from sunshine, or is supposed to come from sunshine?
Vitamin, or D.
D, right. Yeah. Now, many people don't know that's not the only one. What? There are others. And I didn't think about that. I said, D, okay, we need sunshine to get enough D. And just because the sun is shining doesn't mean you're getting enough D, because you could be up in northern Canada, the sun is shining, not a cloud in the sky, but no D is being made in your skin. So everything was D, 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 so I focused on that. Then I wondered, does the sun make anything else beside D? Just because we haven't discovered it yet doesn't mean it isn't making it. So I did some research, and yeah, it's been discovered. There's D-sulfate and a few others, and they're found to be as important or more important than D for your immune system. What do you know? So if you take a D supplement, which I used to advocate, you're only getting D. You're not getting the other sunshine-provided nutrients. So now I don't advocate a D supplement. I advocate, like if you're living far enough away from equatorial regions where the sun isn't strong enough during certain times of the year, to get a phototherapy device. It's like a light box that'll mimic the wavelengths of the sun, so that you now get D and D-sulfate and all those other ones. So that's like, the advanced, and it shouldn't really be considered advanced. It should be part of learning how to be, because most people who come to the raw vegan diet, they do so for health reasons. They want to have optimal health. Now, there are a lot of people who come to the vegan diet because of moral and ethical reasons dealing with animals. And that's understandable, and of course, and that's great. But the ones that come to a vegan diet and a raw vegan diet because they want the best health possible, or they want to resolve something they currently have, well, they need to know all the information that's required for them to have the optimal healing and optimal, not just optimal health, but optimal future health. Because we're all going to have future health. We're all going to have a level of health in the future. What do you want that to be? I asked people, I said, what level of health do you want when you're 95 years old? You know, like, ooh, really? Well, I guess I want the best. Okay then, you have to start investing in that now. So a lot of people have no problem investing now for their future finances, but what about investing now for their future health? That's a concept that blows people's minds. Like, you're right, every day that I'm going to be alive, I'm going to have a level of health, and just because it's great today, or I think it's great today, what do I want it to be when I'm 95? Huh. You know, and there's a lot of things you can do now working towards that.
Yeah, your finances don't mean much when you don't have any health to use it.
Stephen Jobs is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So, that covered a lot, but I guess I just wanted to talk about some tips for people who are trying to be a researcher but have been a student for so long.
Yeah, it's a totally different mindset, a way of looking at things. The first thing is you got to trust that you're able to figure things out. If you think, oh, I don't know anything about anything, I'm just going to find someone that I resonate with, I'm just going to follow them. Yeah, I mean, you can do that and keep your fingers crossed that who you found is, you know, has 100% correct information, accurate information. But a lot of times that's not true. So you need to look at it as a researcher. And, you know, it's like anything new. You go to a new job, something you've never done before, you're going to be nervous. You're like, oh, can I do this? So the first thing to do is just admit to yourself that, yeah, I can do this. I just don't know how yet. I don't know how, but the tools are out there. I just got to find them. And in this case, the tools are books and videos and conferences and people you can counsel with. And then I, again, advise, as I said before, learning as a researcher, but do multi-source education. Don't just find one book or one program or one person that you resonate with. Learn from a whole bunch of different ones. And so that you find that conflicting information, and then you can go, good. Now, which one is, like I said before, which one, you know, keep researching. And so, in other words, if you can read and you can hear and you can fog a mirror and you're above room temperature, you can do all this. It won't be necessarily easy in the beginning, but it will be doable. And that's all it has to do is doable. And it'll be, you know, more difficult in the beginning, especially as you start to find out things. I remember when I learned how bad dairy products were for me and for us. Wow, that really rocked my boat.
Yeah.
I did not like hearing that. Why? Not because I own stock in the dairy industry company, because I love dairy products, because they're designed for you to love them.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, but which is more important, my love of dairy products or my love of great future health? Future health always wins. Future health is always at the top. That's the other tip. Everyone has an inborn list of priorities, or priorities that they'll develop over time, and health is in there somewhere. For cigarette smokers, it's all the way on the bottom, obviously. But so you got to figure out where your health is on your list of priorities, your internalized list of priorities, and just move it up to the top. And when you do that, whatever was above it will come underneath it. I'm not saying get rid of the other things, like self-indulgent, pleasure-seeking behavior. That's great. You don't want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing. But if that was on the top and health was underneath, oh, that's a bad combination, because now you're liable to do things that are, you know, eating Haagen-Dazs and things like that because it's so delicious. But if you take self-indulgent, pleasure-seeking behavior and just put it under health and put health above it, you can still have ice cream. It just won't be Haagen-Dazs. I'm not picking on Haagen-Dazs, I'm just saying. You can have banana ice cream now. You can have the kind of ice cream which is not only delicious, you can have it as a main course. You can have it as a freaking meal. So it's just a different way of looking at things. So that's another one of the tools. Just reordering your internal list of priorities, keeping in mind what's most important to you. Another tool is, it's more of an exercise, pick a number. Pick a number from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best health you could possibly have. If you're at a 10, you can't be any healthier than that. 1, you're as unhealthy as you can be, you can't get out of bed, you're at death's door. Okay, so now pick a number that you want to be at, that you're going to shoot for. And just be honest with yourself. If you pick 6 on a scale of 1 to 10, you'll have more dietary options. And some people like that because, oh, if I pick 6, Don, can I have like fast food? Can I eat at McDonald's? I say, if you pick 6, yeah, not often. If you want to eat there more often, pick 5. And they start to realize, oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
But do you want 8? Do you want 9? Do you want 10? Again, with level 10 comes the best odds of never getting a diagnosis of something life-threatening. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I like the idea of never getting a diagnosis of something life-threatening, of going from cradle to grave without ever getting that diagnosis. So you're going to have the best odds of that at a level of 10. Now, some people would say, well, at a level of 10, you don't have any dietary options. You're forced to eat a very strict diet. Yeah, but you can look at it another way. If you go to buy something and there's like a billion different colors and you have to pick one, oh my God, that's going to drive you out of your mind, having all those options. So sometimes not having options is a great thing. It makes life simple. All the other animal species on the planet, it's simple for them. They don't have any options. They have to eat the diet they're designed to eat. They seek it out. They eat it. There's nothing to think about. So at level 10, you're forced to eat the diet your body is designed to eat. But that kind of makes it easy. Figure out what that is, eat it, and and hopefully it'll be as delicious as what you were eating when you were at level 5 or 6 or 7. And I think a lot of people will discover that, wow, yeah, it actually, not only is it as delicious, it's more delicious. And it makes me feel better. It's one thing if you, like the pleasure of eating a bowl of Haagen-Dazs ice cream lasts only as long as you're eating the bowl of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, right? It doesn't continue afterwards. After you're finished, now you want something else to have that same pleasurable response. But when you're eating the healthiest diet, the diet you're designed to eat, and it's delicious, after you eat that meal, you're feeling great, and that great feeling continues on to the next meal. And that's when light bulbs start to go off, and people start to realize, oh, I get this now. So that's the other tool, or tip. Do it long enough. Give yourself enough time to do it. Because if you just start doing it a little bit, and it's a healthier diet, so your body's starting to detoxify now for like the first time ever. So you might feel a little worse before you feel better, so that's another reason you have to give it some time. But give it some time. Allow for the fact that it's a major paradigm shift, so you're going to mess up a little bit in the beginning. You're going to bump into cravings. You're not going to know why these cravings are. You never had these cravings before. You have them now. Why is that? But you read an article on cravings. I wrote one that kind of breaks cravings down into 2 categories of physiological and psychological. And that's important to do because if your cravings are psychological but you think it's something physiological, you're never going to be able to deal with them because you're going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And if they're physiological, like you're not getting enough chromium, let's say, and you think it's something psychological and you go see a counselor, that's not going to help either. So you just need a little bit more chromium to not have the melon belly or whatever. So yeah, that's another tip. Read articles and to try and help people. Once I discovered this and I started feeling better, I wanted to share this with the world. So that's why I started a website. It's one of the first www websites. It's like one of the original ones. Well, not really, because I missed out. I didn't get the .com. I got the .org version. Someone already had health101.com. Mine is .org. Missed it by that much. Anyway, so I started that website just to put all this information out there. Originally, there was nothing for sale on it. There's very little for sale on there now. You can see a rebounder on there, my books. I think that's about it. So I'm not really into selling things. I just want to share this information with people for their potential benefit and for their consideration.
And that's one reason I gravitated to learning from Don and his information is because, he's not out there to sell you every product that's imaginable. Just his advice, which is, I respect that a lot. I guess something else I want to talk about is happiness versus health. We touched on it a bit with, living a simple diet with, less is more. But especially the body-mind connection, because you talk about, people know about the mind-body connection. If you have happy thoughts, you'll probably be healthier, but if you're healthier, you'll probably have happier thoughts, right?
Oh yeah, the body-mind connection is a huge one that a lot of people don't think about because they hear more about the mind-body connection. But if you're like just a crabby kind of person, it could be just your lifestyle practices affecting your physiology. And I used to be easy to anger. That's an expression. He's easy to anger. I used to be very easy to anger, and I couldn't appreciate the wonderfulness of life. Now I can. I'll give you an example of it. Did you ever see the movie Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
Okay, now when it first came out, I watched it. This was a long time ago. I thought it was a decent movie. It was okay. And then I watched it again like 30 years later, or 25 years later, after I had really gotten my health up there. And it was a whole different movie. It was the same movie. The running time was exactly the same. Nothing was changed. I hadn't gone through any psychological counseling during that 25-year period. But now there was like 6 points in the movie where I started to tear up. I'm like, what the hell? Why is this? What changed within me? It's just my body was less burdened. You know, if you're constantly somebody's sticking you with a pin or something, and you're like, it's annoying, and how are you going to be? Here's a perfect example. Let's say I go to tell you a funny joke, and you laugh because it's a funny joke. It's the only kind of jokes I tell are funny jokes. See, you laugh just like that. But now let's take it back in time, and I'm going to tell you the joke again. But this time you have a migraine. Your chemotherapy didn't go well that day, and I tell you the same joke. Are you going to laugh the same way? Oh, you're probably not, because your ability to enjoy whatever, whether it's a funny joke or life or a flower growing out of a crack in concrete or whatever it is dependent on how healthy you are inside. So that's that body-mind connection.
Yeah, it's people don't realize that people think, well, I need, my McDonald's to be happy, and my McDonald's might be the one thing keeping you from being happy. I guess this is more a question for me than anyone else, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the human eco niche. You mention it a lot, but is there any, does it exist today still? Is it still out there, or does it only exist in the past? Or, or tropical animals, rainforest? I just wanted to get your opinions on that.
Well, it still technically exists. It's just most of us aren't living there anymore because we just, for whatever reason, we roamed. Either we were kicked out or we decided to leave, or who knows what happened, but we certainly roamed into areas where it's obvious we're not designed to exist. You can't exist in northern Canada if you have no clothes and no technology. You'll freeze to death and you'll be gone. But the closer you live to equatorial regions, the easier it is to not have technology and not have to wear clothing. There's large times of year here in South Florida where I don't have to wear any clothing. I do because I'd be arrested otherwise, but that just has to do with laws. But actually there are some nude beaches down here, and it's very nice just to sun yourself without having to wear any clothing, as we did 100,000 years ago. So the places still exist, it's just most of us aren't there. Now, when we realize that and we want to get as back there or as close to our biological eco niche as we can, and a lot of people do this. They're fine living up in northern United States, New York, let's say, whatever, upstate New York. Then they start getting their health much improved. They start, and this was my story. I lived in New York, and as my health improved, I disliked living there more and more, just for the climate. The winters became more and more horrible. They were tolerable when I was unhealthy, but they became intolerable when I became healthy. I had to move further and further south for the better weather. And then I discovered the people were nicer the further south you went, in general. Yeah, I started moving closer, and so I went down to Georgia for a while, and that was nice. But then even the winters in Georgia were just a little too cold. I had to put on too many clothes. Now you see I'm wearing 2 shirts today, which is very rare, but it's kind of cold here for South Florida today. Same for you, right? But normally I don't have to wear any shirts. I can just wear a very flimsy tank top and I'm fine. Yet my friends up in the north, I send them a selfie of me, and they're like, because they've got 7 layers on them. So again, those areas exist. There are things we can do to mimic them, to compensate for us not being them. Like if you live very far north, you can get that phototherapy device that I mentioned to mimic the sun. Where I know some of my clients have gotten that device, put it up on the ceiling, got some sand, made a sandbox. They literally lie in it with coconut water, and they've heated up the room, and they got the sun here, yet it's wintertime out and it's snowing. So that's how they've recreated for themselves. Other people didn't go that route. They said, I can't stay here anymore, like I did. And they start going south. Some people have just gone all the way to Costa Rica. They passed me, jumped over me, and they're in Costa Rica now. And they're like, come on, Don, come on down. And yeah, that's probably where I'll end up at some point, closer to our biological eco niche, where the foods are just easier to get. where the food supply system isn't as fragile as it is up north, or even still here. Yeah, it's something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people are afraid of moving. They get healthier and they, it's not tolerable anymore. It's how I feel about Indiana right now. It's just the winters are just brutal. And a lot of people are just afraid to move. I encourage people to change their location if they so desire. Just a couple more questions about how people look to science to educate their health decisions, which they should. But the truth is that the science is often funded by big corporations, and that perfectly healthy people don't make very much money. And the scientific report on being a raw vegan and everything that has to do with health, it's never going to be out there clear in the public, and you need to dig beyond all those scientific things that pop up in your searches at first, right?
Oh, absolutely. Some people say, well, I've been told point blank, when I see multiple peer-reviewed, double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies showing that eating a raw vegan diet is better for your health than eating the typical Western diet that I'm eating now, then I'll consider it. And when I hear that, I say to the person, no, you won't. And they'll say, what do you mean I won't? Because you just said to me, you'll consider it. You didn't say then you'll do it. So even if I showed you this evidence, and it's there, it's just not in our faces, but it is there, you can find it. There's a lot of studies done in Europe showing how a raw vegan diet is superior to a typical Western diet. But if I were to show this person that, he'd find some other reason to say, oh, no, this is only 15 studies. I need to see at least, 24 studies. He'd find some reason to not do it. So the bottom line is, if you really don't want to do it, all the evidence in the world isn't going to have you do it. So you have to first want to do it. You have to pick that number between 1 and 10. And if you pick 10, okay, so now you move on from there. And then you can find the studies. In fact, a lot of people won't need studies. To be quite honest, when you just lay it out, the logic of it, the rationality of it, and a little bit of proof of nutritional content of foods, or what cooking does to food, as far as reducing nutrients, creating things that cause autoimmune reactions in the body, they can see it. They can see it if they picked 9 or 10 on that list, on that scale. Now, if they actually are at a 5 and want to stay at 5, they're just going to dismiss out of hand anything you show them. So there's people that you want to spend your time with because they're not going to go kicking and screaming. They'll listen. They just have to get over those, like, oh God, I can't have Haagen-Dazs anymore. Okay, no problem. Banana ice cream. Okay. But then the people who you'd be wasting your time with are the people who there's nothing you can show them. There's nothing you can share with them that'll connect with them, because human beings are very good at believing what we prefer to believe and disbelieving what we don't want to believe. We're the only species in the world that can do that. And a lot of people just are good at doing it, and that's where they stay with. They stay with their personal biases and personal preferences, and you can't make a case for optimal health because they'll say, I'm still going to have optimal health. I can, I'm not eating McDonald's every day. I'm eating decent food here, so I'm going to have optimal health. And you try and tell them, well, you can prevent cancer if you eat a healthier diet. No, you can't. We don't know what causes cancer. How can we prevent it if we don't know what causes it? Because they're listening to that mainstream information. The truth of the matter is, we do know what causes it. It's just this knowledge is not mainstream, and it's not mainstream for a very good reason. Because what if, as of 12 o'clock tomorrow, no one got cancer anymore? Oh, that would be so devastating to the economy, at least at the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can't have that. So the information about how you can prevent cancer has to be discredited. So that's why some people who teach mainstream, I won't mention any names, but teach mainstream nutrition, will just discredit the raw vegan diet. Some people, even just because they don't want to believe it, because then they'd have to eat it and they don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
So there's that too. But even in the raw vegan, or in the vegan community, there are people who promote vegan diets who say, no raw vegan. That's unhealthy. Vegan, the healthiest you can go, raw vegan, very unhealthy. And you'd be like, well, why do they go there? because they're vegans first and foremost for ethical, moral reasons. And they know, and they've done the calculation. If you try and convince people, or if you tell people that the raw vegan diet is the healthiest diet to eat, you'll get a lot less converts to veganism than you would if you said, oh no, you can have cooked food, and you know, you can still have a lot of, you can eat lasagna and spaghetti and meatballs and all the things, pizza, you can still eat all those things. It's just going to be vegan. And as long as you do that, that's the healthiest. You don't need to go raw vegan. So that's why so you got to be aware when they say that, that's why they're saying it. It's not because that's the truth, that's just because they want the most vegan converts. I would like it if they were more honest about it and say, yeah, the vegan diet is way healthier than the typical Western diet, but there's still room for improvement. But even if you just go vegan, that'll really improve your chances of not getting diagnosed with something serious. But if you want the best odds, yeah, then you have to go raw vegan. But there are other people out there who talked about raw veganism. I'm here to tell you about all the wonderful vegan recipes that are out there. Now, if they were honest like that, that'd be great. But unfortunately, they're not.
Yeah, that's the importance. The truth is conflicting information doesn't. You know, a lot of people see conflicting information, and they're like, "Well, nothing's right. I'm going to stick. I'm not going to change." And instead, it really just means that if there's more of it, or at least one of them is going to be right. You just got to figure it out.
Well, right, exactly. So for those people who say, okay, obviously no one knows really what the truth is, so I'll just keep the status quo. Well, that doesn't make any sense. What if your status quo happens to be something that's unhealthy? Just because you don't know which one is the unhealthiest thing, what if it's the thing that you're doing? So usually when they have that kind of mindset, it's just because they don't want to change. They want to keep doing what they're doing because they like it, and they're afraid of the unknown. But, you know, change, people see change as something bad. What if you all of a sudden get a $10,000 a year raise at work and you weren't even expecting it? That's a huge change. Well, you're not going to go, no, thanks, boss, I don't want it. Please, no. No, you're going to say, hey, this is great. So there's good change and there's bad change. So the good change is you feeling better, having more energy, needing less sleep. Needing less sleep? What if you needed 1 hour less sleep a day? Do the math. That's 365 more hours of awake time a year. And then carry that out over your lifetime, which is now also increased because you're doing healthier things. That's a lot more life and time. So when people say, oh, there's only 24 hours in a day, what are you going to do? Yeah, but how many of them are you going to be sleeping? Because you can't get much done when you're sleeping, really. Unless in your dreams you're designing the next best product or something.
Yeah. Well, I guess, is there anything else you're researching right now, or?
Oh, let's see. Trying to get better at how to make the case for the different things that I say. Like I just put out an article, Raw Vegan 2.0.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that as well.
So it had some things in there about how, again, discoveries that I made. For example, a year or two ago, I started getting what felt like arthritis in one of my big toes. I'm like, how can this be? I've been raw vegan for 25 years, fruit-based for 25 years, vegan for a lot longer. How am I getting, this is arthritis. I mean, from the description, the way I'm describing it, if I was describing it to somebody else, a practitioner, I'd be describing arthritis. How can this be? Well, maybe I stubbed my toe. And there's a little voice saying, no, you didn't stub your toe. Mm-hmm. Well, let me just see. And then I started getting it in a knuckle here. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Because I shouldn't be getting this. So I started doing a little research, and I know I've had clients who've come to me with arthritis. I'm like, well, what did I tell them? So I went into my own database and saw what it is that I told them. I'm like, yeah, of course, I don't do that. Oh, nightshades. Oh, I do eat nightshades, don't I? I eat red bell peppers, I eat tomatoes, because I can get these wonderful homegrown tomatoes. I wouldn't eat store-bought tomatoes. I'm like, oh, nightshades, yeah. Let me try leaving all the nightshades out of my diet. And it took a while, it took 8 months, but then the arthritis went away. So I'm like, yep, okay, so we're not designed to eat nightshades. And did a little more research, and like, yeah, they're not even an old world food, they're new world foods, and we didn't evolve being adapted to them, so it makes sense, and there's things in them, and I found the substance that's in them that contributes to arthritis. And some people are more predisposed to it than others, and that's why some people can go longer. So I made these connections, so I said, all right, it's time for another article. Raw Vegan 2.0, so I put that in there. A lot of my clients are coming to me, and they were having omega-3 fatty acid insufficiencies. I'm like, well, how can this be? These are raw vegans. They're eating plenty of avocados and all kinds of other. These are not the people who take the term low-fat diet to the extreme and then they don't get enough fat.
Yeah.
There are people who do that because, yes, we're supposed to eat fruit, but we're not designed to eat temperate zone fruit. We're designed to eat tropical fruit. And in general, tropical fruit is fattier than temperate zone fruit. So if you're just eating apples and pears and grapes and berries, there's not enough fat in there if that's all you're eating exclusively. So I'm like, no, these are not these people, so what are they doing wrong? They're eating avocado, so they're getting fat, so I delved deeper into it. Avocados, I discovered, to my amazement, have a 17-to-1 ratio of 6s to 3s, omega 6s to 3s. And the 6s are the pro-inflammatory omegas, and the 3s are the anti-inflammatory omegas. So I'm like, wow, 17-to-1. Even mainstream nutritionists will say, hey, it shouldn't be any higher than 4-to-1.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's 1-to-1 is best. 1-to-1 ratio of 6s to 3s. So people eating in the raw vegan community, eating avocado this and avocado that, and they're putting it in their ice cream, they're getting tons of 6s. And I said, well, wait a second. Well, what if they were getting enough 3s? What does it matter that they're getting way more 6s than they need? Because I just started doing the numbers with some of my clients. I'm like, they're getting enough 3s. So why are they having what appears to be a 3 insufficiency, an omega-3 insufficiency? Well, it turns out the 3s and the 6s are processed by the same enzyme, so you have something called competitive inhibition. If you get way more 6s than 3s, not enough of the 3s get processed because of all the 6s, the inordinate amount of 6s that are being processed. So even though you're taking in enough 3s, you cannot be getting enough 3s. And I'm like, this was blowing my mind. I'm like, how do I put this in an article for people without blowing them away and saying, okay, this is just too much, I'm going back to my typical Western diet? Or at the very least saying, I don't understand what you're talking about, I'm going to continue to eat my avocado as a raw vegan. Mm-hmm. So I tried to say it in a conversational way and for it to make sense. I had to mention competitive inhibition because that's the technical process. I try not to get too technical though. But yeah, so I stopped eating avocado. I'm sticking with the mamey and the black sapotes and the durian, the creamier tropical fruits. But you might ask, well, what about the people who can't get these? Isn't then avocado the only fatty thing they can eat? Well, yeah, that's the one that they can find on the shelves, but it's still, because of the 17-to-1 ratio, it's not the best thing to eat. You should eat it in moderation. I knew someone who was a raw vegan educator, and he was having meals of just 10 avocados. Now, yeah, so he failed, he crashed and burned, and he blamed it on the diet. Not on what he was doing, but on the diet, and now he's back eating cooked food. Okay, so that's, you really have to have an understanding of when something goes wrong, why did it go wrong? Don't suppose, don't guess why it went wrong. Oh, okay, I guess this is not the diet for me. So yeah, there's things you can do, like you can take a banana, and now you're staying down in Homestead. Have you tried any of those Homestead bananas?
We've had some apple bananas, but with the hurricane, there's not too many bananas around. I've heard you talk about Namwa bananas before. I really want to try them.
Namwa bananas are great, and all the other banana varieties I've tried that you can't buy in the store, they all taste better than the Cavendish banana, the ones you buy in the store. I'm like, why did they do this? Well, they did it because the Cavendish stores well, transports well, grows well, you can super crop it well. It's just not the tastiest.
Yeah.
It's not the creamiest. The Namwas are just creamier. There's one, I think it's called the Praying Hands banana. You try and make a smoothie out of it, you keep adding water, and it's super thick. You keep adding water, or coconut water, it's still super thick. It's so dense. But then you can't even pour it. It won't pour out of the thing. You have to eat it with a spoon. So there's much more delicious and better for us bananas. So here's what you can do. You can take the poor, lowly Cavendish banana, put it in a blender, and add equal amounts of hemp and chia seeds. You got to grind the chia seeds before you put them in, though. The hemp seeds you don't. But now you add a little bit of the chia seeds and the hemp seeds, and that raises the fat content and the EFA content of the banana. It makes that banana, that Cavendish banana, more like the other bananas. So people say, well, wait, that's a fat and a sweet. You can't mix fat and sweet together in the same meal, because they know, they've been told, if you eat almonds and watermelon in the same meal, just call an ambulance. That's a bad combination. So they learned a little bit about food combining, or what I call food miscombining. But you're not really eating a mouthful of chia seeds or hemp seeds and then taking a bite of banana. You're not eating them separately. You're making something. You're doing what nature did. You're making a new type of banana. Okay, it's like what people down here in Florida do. They take 3 or 4 different the varieties of mango, and they crossbreed them, and they come out with a new variety of mango, and they name it after their wife, and everyone's happy. It's a wonderful thing. But they've made a new mango, a new variety of mango. So you can make your own variety of banana by doing this, and it just makes it more like the other bananas that are out there. So now you're getting enough of the omega-3s and not too many of the omega-6s, because you've done this and you've gotten the avocado out. If not entirely, you're now eating avocado just a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely recommend you all read Raw Vegan 2.0 article on Don's website if you want the best health. And final question, Don, what is your favorite fruit?
It would have to be the one that I'm eating at the time that I'm eating it.
It's a beautiful answer. I'd have to agree.
But my favorites, plural, tend to be, well, they're the ones that when I eat them exclusively, that's when I feel the best. I feel the most vibrant. I need the least amount of sleep, and they happen to be the creamier tropical fruits. The black sapote, mamey, durian, also mangoes and papayas and things that are not necessarily considered creamy, but they're all the tropical fruits. So the more tropical fruit you get into your diet, or the equivalent of, the better you're going to feel and the healthier you're going to be.
They taste so good too.
Oh yeah, it just like, here, I'll give you an example. Take the best store-bought pastry you've ever eaten, and you know how like you haven't eaten for hours, and you go to eat this, I forget even what they're called now, these little things and puffs and things, and you eat it like, this is so good. Or you make those faces, right? People do that. When I ate, like for the first time, a good durian or a good mamey, the noises that were coming out of me and the pounding of the table was just it just blew away the best thing you could ever buy in a pastry store, because these are from nature. These are grown for us by nature, not made for us by human beings. So you can't beat nature. It's just, and plus the body recognizes it as something it's designed to have. So it's just like a two-piece jigsaw puzzle where they fit together so perfectly. You buy stuff from the store, the processed foods, and the foods that if you have to cook it or process it, you're not designed to eat it. That's just basic, how you can figure out, is this a food of my biological adaptation? Well, if you have to process it, and I don't mean using a blender, I mean just cooking. If you have to cook it to be able to eat it, you're not designed to deal with it. Side note, I went and was passing a wheat field. I forget what state I was in, but it was a huge wheat field, and I asked the farmer if I could try eating some of this wheat. And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, why would you? Wheat isn't we can't eat wheat. That's the food for birds and rats and things like that. I said, I just want to do it to be able to say I did it. So I got some wheat and pulled it on a thing, and it was disgusting. There was no way I could even swallow it. So just because our beautiful brains figured out a way to take something totally inedible and turn it into a bagel, doesn't mean we're designed to eat wheat. Plus, who eats a plain bagel to begin with? Don't you have to put something on it? I don't know anyone that doesn't put something on their bagel.
Yeah.
And what if they're putting fruit on it? Well, if I go into a store, I'll say, I'll have that bagel with fruit, hold the bagel.
Yeah.
Just give me the fruit, because that's what we really like.
Yeah, I tried the same thing with corn and had to spit it out. How can we find you?
Health101.org is my website. I've got 3 books on there. You have them over there.
We've got this is your health Bible right here, Avoiding Degenerative Disease, and then after that, the raw food diet. Highly recommend. And the final one, hopefully you won't have to write this one, or it'll get thinner, right?
Thinner over time.
Well, you know that isn't so.
Now, just briefly about these, I wrote this one for the mainstream public to try and, the first 6 chapters don't even have anything to do about diet or exercise or sleep. It's just to try to get them to value their health. Because a lot of people, we're not taught it in school. So the first 6 chapters are just about realizing that your health is your wealth, and that you really should be valuing it. And think of yourself when you're 90 or 80, or do you want to be like the people that get to be in their 90s and 80s? How do you want the final 1/6 of your life to be? And I ask these kind of questions, and then starting with chapter 7, diet, exercise, etc. This one is, I thought this would be the only book I would ever write. But then I wrote this one, and I didn't even write it. You guys wrote it. Because over a 10-year period, you guys are writing me a lot of questions, and I'm answering. And I got a lot of the same questions, where to get your protein from and all this. So I would copy and paste the question with my answer and just put it in the file to make it easier to answer that question again without having to retype the answer. So after 10 years, I had a huge file of 300 questions and answers. So I took 200 of the best ones, and these were great questions that I would have never thought to even ask to be able to answer. So that's what's in this book here. This one I wrote because I was mad. I didn't intend to write this book, but there were people literally dying because they were following an approach to raw veganism that contributed to their death, basically. I'll just say it. And it just made me angry because it's easy to show that these memes are wrong and they're incorrect. But a lot of people are following them because they come from very charismatic educators who you can relate with. They're relatable, they're charismatic, they're just like, they seem so sincere. And some of them are, and some of them aren't. So I just got mad and I wrote a book about all the misinformation that's out there, why the misinformation exists, I don't name names in the book, I just say, here's how to figure out. In other words, when you're vetting information, like you want to buy a car, you vet the information, right? About the different cars, the different Fords, the Toyotas, whatever, you vet the information about the cars. I recommend vetting the information about the car companies too. Okay, then you might see, okay, let's say you want to buy an electric car. Nissan makes an electric car, Tesla makes an electric car. Okay, so you vet the car information, what about the company? When you vet the two different companies, you see, wow, these are so diametrically opposed to each other. I want to give my thousands of dollars to Tesla, not to Nissan, once you look into the companies. So the same thing should apply to educators. Vet their information from all the different educators that you're looking at, but try and vet the educators too to try and figure out, are they honestly sincere? Or are they pulling your leg? Or have they been miseducated, but they're too arrogant to change what they teach? You know, that's what I recommend to look at, because look, your health is at stake. Your future health is at stake.
Well, you've heard it from one of the best, Don Bennett. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure, Evan.
Bye.